bang, boom, pow. These are all action words commonly found in this comic book and others. Why would I show you this ratty old magazine? It's a comic book, and it's a big part of our culture. Today I will tell you about comic books, or comic strips, Marvel Comics, and DC Comics. First, I will tell you about comic strips and graphic novels. A common place you see and read comic strips is in newspapers. Winslow McCay, who was born in 1871 and died 1934, was known, who, according to the Encyclopedia of World Biography in 2001, McCay has been called the father of animated cartoons. He may have been a cartoon writer, but he started his career as a comic strip drawer. In his childhood, he shocked many of his fellow teachers and classmates with his immense ability to draw. But he never received any training with his drawings. He went to school for business, but eventually dropped out, for he did not want to do that, and ended up being a side writer in penny movies. He got his only professional education from John Goodingson, and one of his very famous comic strips was this, which is from Little Nemo, and it's about a little Nemo, or a boy, who wakes up from many of his dreams that happen in the land of Dreamland. Graphic novels. Magazines or comic books, as the one I showed you at the beginning of the speech, are a very big part of this culture. They have been creating human history for many times. Commonly are action, but can also lean towards tragedy and comedy. Mangas or anime comic books are Japanese comics, and they tend to be 300 pages long, when the average American comic book is 50 pages long. They are most popular in Japan. Next, I will talk about Marvel. Mostly when people think of Marvel, they think of X-Men and the Avengers. But there are also many other comic book stories that Marvel has created that have shocked audiences everywhere. The Marvel Mystery Comics, which, according to the Comic Book Encyclopedia in 2003, Marvel Mystery Comics were the cornerstone of the mighty Marvel Empire. The Marvel family, Captain Marvel, Mary Marvel, and Marvel Boy, were very important in these stories. Captain Marvel, he had his own comic book, and his sidekick, or espionage, I don't really know. Or sidekick was Mary Marvel. She later is very important because she later goes on to becoming her own comic book. Marvel Boy is featured in many of the Marvel comics, but never gets one of his own. Last thing I will talk about are DC Comics. Superman. According to the Comic Book Nation 2001, Superman was not just fighting for the American way, he was inventing it. Superman has been considered the greatest superhero ever. DC Nation. Last summer they did something very important for the DC Nation. They restarted all of their comic books, so all of the issues up to that point were either discarded or were no longer in print, and they created new comic books with the same characters and same plot lines, but they made them more recent technologies, more recent equipped with the knowledge and more recent outfits. According to the PR Newswire, DC Nation, it's always been about the fans, and we wanted to give back with a big event. According to the Library Journal in 2012, young people love comics, and many non-readers will read comics. Many say that comics are for nerds or dorks, but you have just heard an entire speech about the giant empire that is comic books. Today I told you about comic strips, Marvel Comics, and DC Comics. Next time you turn down a book, remind yourself that there are plenty other comic books for you to read instead.